All right, welcome guys. So, what to do in a rut? So, in this video, I'm just going to talk about what will place you into a rut. So, what are the things that will actually put you into a rut? And then we're going to talk about what you can do about each of these things. And then I have a little bonus tip. So, first things first is you're going to have to identify why you're stuck. Identify what it is that's actually making you stuck in the first place. What it is that has you feeling like you are in a rut, right? So for most people, if you're in a rut, what this feels like and what this looks like is you don't really feel like doing anything. You don't feel like working. You don't want to work, or you just can't work. Like you really just can't do it, right? Even if you wanted to, you're just so out of it mentally or physically even that you just really can't do work. And if you did, it's not going to come out that great either. So what are the things that are actually going to put you into a rut? So usually a rut is going to consist of you feeling like you are stuck, right? This feeling of lethargy that is sitting in our body and our mind being resistant to our normal daily habits, our normal routine, right? Even though we've been doing this routine for a certain period of time, now all of a sudden something's off and we just can't do it, right? We can't stick to our routine. We just don't feel good, right? We feel like shit. Mentally, we're not so great. Like our mind is coming at us, right? So, what are the things that are actually going to cause this? What are the things that are going to put us into this position? So, the first things first is going to be your habits. So, if you have a habit, let's say all of your habits are good, but you have a habit that's going to slow you down, this will over time put you into more of a lethargic state. It will kind of slow you down mentally, right? And so what will happen is at one point, all of this is going to hit you, and all of the weeks or months of you doing this bad habit and slowing yourself down in some way, it's going to catch up to you, even if it's only a small one, right? But in a lot of cases, if you're in a rut, you're going to have multiple habits that are actually hindering you, not just one, right? So you're going to have multiple different habits that are in your way. Identify what those habits are, identify what those things are, right? The next thing can be diet. So if you are eating healthy for a period of time and then all of a sudden you stop, right? You're going to put yourself into a rut. You're going to get yourself stuck because our diet is going to directly determine how productive and how energetic we're going to feel. So if you're eating a high carb diet, a high sugar diet, these are things that will slow you down mentally, and these will things that will make you start to feel more lethargic and eventually put you into a rut. So the next thing I have is drugs or alcohol. So if you're smoking weed, if you started taking heroin out of the blue, right, it's going to be pretty self-explanatory that you end up in a rut. If you start drinking on weekends, it's self-explanatory. You're going to get hit with a hangover, and then that's going to lead to you slowing yourself down, slowing down your momentum. And then you're more likely, even the next day after the hangover, to start your day a little bit slower just because of the alcohol being in your system, right? Just because of the new routine that you've created, right? So you went out drinking one night and you took Sunday off, right? You went out Saturday night, you took Sunday off because you were hungover or whatever. You're gonna have a hard time getting back into the flow on Monday than someone who was reading his book Saturday night, went to sleep early, and woke up on Sunday doing their work still, right? Staying consistent still, right? So this person is going to be faster when it comes to Monday, when it comes to continuing the momentum because he never stopped it. But the person who's working all week and then, oh, I've had a long week, let me go drink some alcohol, you're slowing yourself down and you're losing that momentum that you've created throughout the week. And so really your celebration for your hard work is really just kind of negating it. But so whatever drug or whatever alcohol, or sorry, whatever drug or if it's alcohol, right? This is going to put you into a rut because it makes us comfortable. It makes us feel okay with the way our life is, specifically weed, right? Weed is going to make us feel comfortable with where we're at, right? So it's going to be harder to actually get things moving, get the ball rolling, and get some momentum because we don't have that motivation, right? We're kind of okay with where we're at. So this will slow us down as well. Same with alcohol. Alcohol gives us a cope with where we're at in life, right? Temporary cope, yes, but it gives us a cope, right? So when we're doing these things and we are sitting here wondering, why can't I work? It's pretty self-explanatory. You got to look at that and you got to be like, well, that's why I can't work, right? You can't sit here and act like you don't understand why you can't work when you are doing things like drinking on a daily or drinking on a weekly, right? Or smoking weed on a daily, right? So you're going to have to remove these things, these copes, these comfortable things in your life that you're allowing to be in your life in order to make things a little bit easier, because these are the things that are causing you to get stuck every once in a while when you do get stuck, right? So if you're a productive person and you're only getting in a rut once in a while, there's going to be a habit, a thing that is causing you to go into these low states, right? Yes, we have ups and downs as human beings, but it is a sign that something's off when we get these lows, when we get these depressive states, right? It is a sign that something is missing, something is off. We cannot be doing everything perfectly right and then end up in a rut, right? It may look like we're doing everything right on the outside, but there is something causing that rut, right? So even if it's internal, it could be mental as well. I don't really have this on the list, but a rut can just be mental, right? So the next thing is going to be overconsumption. If we're eating too much, or if we're consuming too much of anything, I have overstimulation on here, but I'm going to include if we're overconsuming information, right? Like if we are watching too much YouTube, or like TikTok and social media are a little bit separate, right? Because these are more stimulating. I would put these in the overstimulation category. But if we are, let's say we're watching courses all day long, or if we're watching long form YouTube videos all day long, like we're still learning, right? But we're over consuming the knowledge. We're getting too much knowledge, more than we can actually use. And so this will create a lot of brain fog and a lot of mental overload. And then this will eventually lead us to getting into a rut. So the last thing I've got is overstimulation. So overstimulation, whether that's through drugs or alcohol, right? Doing too much weed throughout the day, or if we are scrolling on TikTok, scrolling on social media, right? Junk food, if we're eating a lot of stimulating junk food, this is going to fry our dopamine receptors. It's going to fry our brain. And we understand this. We understand how dopamine affects our brain, right? But when we're overstimulating ourselves like this, we will eventually lead ourselves to get that low state, that low point in our dopamine. And this will cause us to not only be in a rut and get into a rut, but feel stuck in that rut, right? And so as we're stuck in that rut, we seek to and reach for these things that are overstimulating us in order to find comfort and find things to do that aren't boring, right? And avoid that boredom. But really, that boredom is just our brain having to work through and deal with the damage done to its dopamine receptors when you're overstimulating yourself, right? So that boredom is actually just the response to you overstimulating yourself and filling your brain with too much dopamine, right? So now we're going to get into basically fixing all of these things. So I have this section labeled remove or replace, right? Because we either need to remove something from our lives or we need to replace something, whatever that may be, right? So the first things first is the habits, right? So we got to trade one habit for a new habit. We can never just kill a habit and cut off a habit just like that, right? We need to always replace old habits with new ones, correct? So let's say, for example, I'll use this example. So let's say I'm smoking weed twice a day, right? 2 times a day in the afternoon. The morning time, though, it's my work time. That's when I'm hard at work, I'm grinding, I'm doing my thing, I hit the gym, I come home, right? And I smoke weed as soon as I get home. That's my habit. Is I go to the gym, I make my lunch and stuff, and then I smoke weed. That's the habit loop, right? So what I would do is, instead of just, oh, let me cut out the weed, right? Because then I'm going to get to that point in the day and then I'm going to crave the weed. What you would do instead is, instead of smoking weed, replace the habit of smoking weed with a book, with reading a book, right? So replace the habit with something healthy, right? I could use another example. I could use social media. Let's say after school every day, because I kind of have this like low mental fog type of feeling, I want to go on my phone and just scroll away because I don't feel good, right? So I'm just scrolling, and then when I get off, now my dopamine is fried. Now I can't really do much, and so I kind of feel lazy, right? So what you could do is notice that, realize that, become aware of that, right? See where that's happening for you, wherever it is, and then find a way to replace that habit. So after school, I feel low energy, so I want to stimulate myself. That doesn't make sense because I'm still using my energy technically to watch these TikToks. I'm not actually relaxing or resting when doing that, at least mentally. So what can I do is I can do some breath work and actually get my energy up, right? Actually start feeling more energetic, right? So take the habit that is hindering you, take the habit that is causing your rut, and then remove it, right? Sorry, don't remove it, but replace it. You need to put another habit in its place, right? Um, the next one is about removing it. So the next one is going to be buying different food. So if our diet is the problem, right? We need to throw away junk food. We need to throw it. I don't like, so I'm gluten free, but even if I wasn't, I would advocate for not eating things like breads, not eating gluten in general, but not eating very heavy carbs, right? I only like to eat potatoes and rice for carbs. I think other than those two, we can risk damage to our gut with things like gluten because of the way it's produced and the way it's grown. As well as, I don't know a whole lot about this, but our bodies do have a hard time breaking down gluten, even if you aren't celiac, right? So buying different food just means throwing away the foods that are going to be slowing us down, right? Throwing away all of the foods that are slowing us down. So I would throw away any fake carbs, right? Any false foods. I would only buy and only eat single ingredient foods, and bread is not one of those. So like rice, potatoes, meats, right? I like steak, fish, eggs, chicken, right? I'm not a huge fan of lamb or pig, but it is what it is, right? Just single food ingredients, right? Like lettuce. I mean, I buy spring mix, so it's not technically a single ingredient, but everything in there is a single ingredient, right? So like things like vegetables, fruits, salads, meat, things like that. If we're eating like this, right? If we're eating these foods consistently, you won't end up in a rut. You won't get into a rut. Like if you do get into a rut while eating a diet like this, if you just cut out meat and carbs for a week or so and eat straight vegetables and fruit for about a week, you'll feel better. Your energy will be back up. You'll be mentally clear again. And then you can just go back to this diet. But for the most part, if you are on a clean diet like this, you won't have much brain fog. You won't have much lethargy, right? And you'll find that when you do get in a rut, it's very easy to get yourself back out because you have the mental clarity and you have the energy levels, right? Because when we're eating fake foods, we're not really getting real energy. And so we kind of end up halfway through the day or whatever, end up kind of falling off in our productivity. And this is just because the food that we're eating isn't good for us at all, and so it's slowly killing us, and that's resulting in our body's energy being slightly lower because it's using that energy to try and fight off the toxins that we're constantly shoveling into it. So if we remove these foods and we feed it healthy food that actually gives us sustainable energy, our body will actually start to store that energy, and we'll feel it throughout the day. We'll actually feel productive and feel able to do the things we need to do. And on top of that, the mental clarity created, right? When we are eating healthy, we have a clear mind. And so therefore, when we do get in a rut, we're able to very easily and clearly identify why and how, and then remove that and fix that thing, right? So this was what I was talking about earlier. So, funny enough, I used this example back when I was talking about it. But for drugs and alcohol, right? If this is your problem, if this is what you have that is hindering you and putting you into this rut, just stop using, right? Stop using and then read instead. Replace it with reading. I thought that was funny. But so like for example, what I said earlier, if you are drinking on Saturday nights or Friday nights or whatever, replace that habit with reading a book on Saturday, right? Read a book Saturday night until you fall asleep, right? So just replace the use of the drugs, replace the use of the alcohol with reading. It doesn't have to be reading, but I like reading. So replace it with reading, or anything, right? But just most importantly, remove the drugs or alcohol, remove the stimulus. If you have withdrawals from your drug of choice, then I would take some time and really emphasize getting through these withdrawals, really emphasize the sobriety process, right? Don't be on your grind while you're trying to sober up. This doesn't really make sense, at least in some cases, right? Like if it's weed, I think you're better off getting onto your grind, right? Because that'll give you something to focus on. That'll give you something to give your attention to. But if it's something like a chronic alcohol addiction where you've been drinking every night for years, you might want to take some more time, right? You might want to look at that and be like, well, I'm not necessarily in a rut, but rather I'm just kind of dying. So I would look at that and I would say it's most important to prioritize getting through those withdrawals, getting through that process, and then getting on your grind, whatever that may be. But yeah, just remove the use of the alcohol or the drug, and you will feel much better. I don't even have to explain this one. Everyone who's using a drug, if you stop using that drug and you get through the withdrawals of using that drug, you will instantly get out of the rut you've been in for the last 10 years without much trouble at all, honestly. So so moderate consumption or fast. So if you are struggling with the overconsumption part of it, right? So if you are overconsuming information, if you are overconsuming food, if you are overconsuming drugs or alcohol, I mean, we've already covered that one, both of those. But let's say you talk too much, right? Let's say you speak too much, right? You're overconsuming social interaction. You can overconsume these things. If you're overconsuming sex, right? If you're overconsuming sexually, it'll do the exact same thing, right? So all of these things kind of fit into one category of overconsumption, right? And why do we overconsume? Why do we consume too much? It is a feeling of lack in our mind. It is our brain feeling like we need more. We need something, right? And this feeling of I need something is constantly giving us since we're constantly giving off that frequency and that vibration, it's constantly giving us situations where we don't have enough and we don't feel like we're enough, and then therefore we need to chase stimulus or consumption, right? And we chase stimulus through consumption of information, food, sex, etc. So what can we do? We can moderate our consumption, or we can fast, right? So if we fast from food, we can fast from speaking, right? We can fast from talking. You can fast from learning and taking in information, right? Called a dopamine detox, right? Stop watching YouTube. Don't read any books and just meditate, right? And you can fast from sex as well. You can fast from sex, right? And so just moderate the consumption, right? Because these things aren't necessarily bad. It is the overconsumption of them that is bad, right? It's the overconsuming of information, of sex, that creates lethargy and getting into a rut and getting slowed down in our progress, right? So we just moderate the consumption of these things, moderate how we consume, and if we really can't, if we're struggling, fast, right? So the next thing I have is for if your struggle is just dopamine, right? If your struggle is just overstimulation, the only real fix to this as a dopamine detox is to take the time that it takes to heal your brain, heal the neural pathways in your brain, right? Take like a week to 2 weeks where you aren't using any social media, where you aren't consuming any drugs or alcohol or anything like this, not having any sex, right? And then you basically reset and rewire the dopamine systems in the brain, and this will allow you to get yourself out of a rut and actually feel pleasure in doing the hard things, feel pleasure in doing the work that you have to do, and then you can actually get on it, get on your grind, take care of your shit, right? But during this dopamine detox, what are you doing? You should be reprogramming your neural pathways. You should be reprogramming your brain. You should not be sitting in your room all day fucking staring at a wall, waiting for it to get over so you can go back on your phone. You should be taking this time to rewire your brain, rewire the things you like to do throughout the day, right? Change the way that you present yourself day to day. And then after these 2 weeks, not much should change, right? You shouldn't after the 2 weeks just go right back. After the 2 weeks, it should feel like just another day, and your new routine should be the default routine, right? And honestly, at this point, I would even delete the apps that you had before in the first place, right? Delete them and keep them off your phone. The only reason I actually have any of those apps on my phone is for this channel, right? I have Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for this channel alone. I don't use them for anything else, right? And if I didn't have this channel, and if I didn't have accounts over there as well, I wouldn't have the apps on my phone just because I don't use them anymore, right? Took the dopamine detox, but instead of just forcing myself to stay away from my phone for a couple weeks, I actually just found other things that I enjoy doing more. And so now, whenever I have time where I would go on my phone, I don't, because I have other things that I'd like to do. I'd rather just sit here and think about my own goals than go and scroll watching someone else talk about theirs. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's the dopamine detox. And then, so I have one more section, one more tip. So when you are in a rut, when you are stuck, when you are feeling like you can't keep moving forward, you can't keep progressing, you have to face the reality that you find yourself in. So you have to actually face the situation that you are currently in, because a lot of people will look and be like, well, I was so productive yesterday. I was so productive 2 days ago, last week, right? Why can't I do it now? And they want to just get back to that point now, right? But what are you actually feeling right now? What are you actually experiencing right now? Look at that. Look at what your current experience is, right? Look at what you're currently feeling, how you're thinking, the way you're looking at things, right? Because this could also be a sign. Maybe you're just in a rut because the business you're working on isn't the business for you. Maybe mentally you are just resisting the work because you've been doing it for this 3 months, 4 months, but you don't actually want to do the work. This isn't work you desire to be doing, right? So really look at the situation you find yourself in. Really look at the reality of what you're experiencing, right? So look at, the first thing is the resistance. Look at the resistance that you're currently feeling, right? What is the resistance you're feeling? What are you feeling it to and why, right? And then the next thing is regret, right? So are you feeling regret? Do you regret something you had done in the past, right? And this could be 3 days ago, right? Are you regretting something you did last week? Are you regretting something you did 2 years ago? Are you feeling this regret and feeling like you aren't enough? This will lead you to not feeling like you can do the work. This will lead you to feeling lazy, correct? And so when we are in a rut, the best thing to do is actually just sit there and become aware of why. Become aware of what is causing this rut, what is causing us to be stuck, and then find a way to actually go about fixing that, right? And so now we have overcoming. So overcoming the resistance, overcoming the regret that we feel, right? So let's say we made a mistake 3 days ago. Let's say we went to a party and we got drunk. What do we do now about it? We face it. We become aware of it. We look at, well, why did I? Well, all of my friends were going out drinking and I didn't want to feel left out. But those aren't really the friends that align with your purpose or your goals. And so now you might want to look at, well, those might not be the friends for me, right? I'm not a drinker. I don't like drinking. I don't like going out and partying. I'd rather be focused on my goals, right? And so you kind of look at this and you become aware of this. And then this will make it easier for you to get back on track. It'll make it easier for you to overcome the rut, right? So actually overcoming is a matter of facing the resistance that you feel, taking whatever resistance that it is, whatever regret that you're having, facing it, becoming aware of it, looking at what it is, why you're feeling it, and then actually doing something about that. So let's say for me, I'm just having resistance to my routine. There's no real reason for it. Like, I just don't feel great. Maybe I didn't eat good last night or didn't sleep good last night, and I'm just completely resistant to my routine. I don't want to do my routine today. I'm just going to sit there and I'm going to look at why. Why am I feeling this way? What is causing me to feel this? Oh, I didn't eat good yesterday. Oh, I went to sleep late last night, right? And so I'm going to see these things and I'm going to be like, oh, let me fix that. Let me make sure I eat good today, right? Let me make sure I go to sleep early tonight. Let me just take a break. Let me just sit here and read for a bit this morning since I don't have a whole lot of sleep. Let me just kind of wake up slowly. Let me not jump right onto my routine today, right? Switch things up a little bit just to get yourself back on track and get momentum going, right? And then once you've gotten the momentum going again, then you're good, right? You don't have to do the different routine now that you've gotten momentum going, but you might need to change something up to get that momentum again, right? So that's all I have for you guys. I hope you enjoyed. And if you want any more self-improvement tips or anything else about growth, evolution, the mind, and productivity, you can subscribe. But other than that, I will see you guys next time. Peace.